Bernie Sanders, crazy Bernie, has condemned the U.S. military strike on Soleimani, the world's top terrorist. Think of it, the world's top terrorist. And we're having people like Nancy Pelosi. It's a real genius. Do you believe that one? Nancy, nervous Nancy. But here's the guy who slaughtered and butchered civilians all over, and military, whoever was in his way. And we have Bernie and Nancy Pelosi, we have them all. They're all trying to say, how dare you take him out that way? You should get permission from Congress. You should come in and tell us what you want to do.
Donald Trump is fixating on Bernie Sanders. He's not only attacking Bernie Sanders at these rallies, he's also attacking Bernie Sanders in leaflets. Now, Sanders, his camp, and I would imagine every last Sanders supporter would love to have this very specific argument. Meaning, you got into office with this notion of being an anti-war candidate against Clinton, who was considered to be the war candidate. And you are in a country that don't want us there, meaning Iraq, and has voted to kick us out. You're in Syria illegally. You even admitted that Obama went into that war with the notion of regime change, and yet you stayed in order to steal the oil. That doesn't look like you're ending wars. In fact, it looks like you're about to start one with Iran. Yes, let's have that argument. That is an argument that we would love to actually flesh out and have, especially on a debate stage. He is fixating on Sanders because Sanders has started to show dominance going into Iowa. Dominance is too strong. He started to surge, let's say it that way, going into Iowa. Iowa is going to be in less than a month. New Hampshire is in less than a month. And in both of those states, Sanders is either in the 1 or 2 spot. He's strong, especially in the early states. And the catch here is, the thing is, the early states are the thing that may determine future states. So national polls, I always say national polls have somewhat of a lie in it, but it still gives you this notion of what is the public thinking, especially when you get this kind of trend of from month to month to month. Reuters has just come out with a poll, national poll. Sanders, number one, jumps to the number 1 spot. But the polling is more interesting when you look at what people were being asked and the way that they answered those questions. Joe Biden is literally only in this race because of electability. I'm sorry, perceived electability. Because honestly, after listening to Trump for 10 minutes, I don't think Biden stands up to this. When you're looking at Joe Biden in this polling, Joe Biden is lost. He's declined in this poll. And yet, he's still number 2 in this poll. And when you look at the various questions of what they're asking people, that goes beyond just who do you want in this election. When you get into very specific policy ideas, what do you think about healthcare? What do you think about immigration? What do you think about the economy? What do you think about X or Y? That's when it gets more interesting. Because on all of those counts, Biden loses, with the exception of electability. Meaning Joe Biden is in the number 2 spot in this poll, despite on all of the policy issues losing. He's still in number 2. It's electability. It's that perceived electability. This is our safe bet. This is the guy we're going to go with. And yeah, there's some people who say they want to maintain the Obama legacy. Yes. But when you get to the brass nuts of it, it's we think he can beat Trump. I'm going to take a look at this Reuters poll because in spite of that quote-unquote electability margin that Joe Biden has been able to maintain, Sanders has still been able to exceed him in this national poll. Reuters, grade A poll. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, so even $1 helps. You know I like polling. At the very least, I like the trends. Now, I'm not going to go too long into this because it's just one. And we've seen in the national polling trend, Sanders has moved strongly into the number 2 spot, essentially grabbing the number 2 spot with strong masculine hands. And so these polls, they're going to be what they are. But again, trends are more interesting. But when you get into the nub of what they're asking the people in this poll, it is fascinating that Joe Biden is still number 2. This is Reuters, Ipsos, and Democratic approved poll. Sanders, 17%, up 2. Biden, 15%, down 3. Warren, 10%, no change. That's actually good for her because typically she's collapsing. Bloomberg, 6%. That's what $130 million gets you. Think about that for the moment. $130 million, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was like 130, but 110 to $130 million. One man spent that. Tom Steyer, next, spent like 80 million or something to that effect, 80 or $90 million. 2 billionaires. Tom Steyer is a lesser billionaire in this process, but he is still a billionaire. It's utterly astonishing and shameful. Do you know who the next highest spender is? Bernie Sanders. And if I am not mistaken, he was at $20 million. And it might not even have been $20 million. That they're trying to buy this election. Fortunately, they're failing at it. Tom Steyer has gotten a big jump, however, in 2 states that allowed him to get into the next Democratic debate. Again, that's what $80 million gets you. You don't have to have good ideas. You just need a bunch of money. Let's go to the polling itself, though. So these are the respondents. Those were the numbers that you saw before. Now, let's get to the questions. All right. Because beyond just the numbers, they asked respondents various questions on who they think will be best for X or for Y. Who do you think will be best? Let's see, right here. All right, so first one. What is the most important reason that you're voting for a particular candidate? Right here. To beat Trump. That's what we want. Clear, crystal, very straightforward. You got to be able to beat Trump. All right, fair enough. Who is the best player in immigration? Bernie Sanders, 19%. Joe Biden, number 2 spot. Who has the best plan on healthcare? Bernie Sanders, 28%. No one is even close. Let's put that in context. Nobody is even close. Bernie Sanders has been screaming at the height of his lungs about Medicare for all. Loud as can be. He has been very clear and unequivocal. Medicare for all is a bill. This is the bill that I'm going to push, and I'm going to introduce this bill as soon as I get in office, because God knows if I get in office, that shit is a mandate, and I am going to scream it from the rooftops. Mandate! Mandate! You don't think Sanders is going to scream mandate from the rooftops and is going to compel Congress to pass the legislation that he has just introduced? And not just that, in order for him to win, he is going to have a wave election, because I seriously doubt that all of those people are going to go and vote Sanders and then down ticket vote Republican. I'm greatly doubtful of that. He has stuck to this plan, a plan that they screamed was radical, that was off the rails and everything else. He stuck to it. And the public has rewarded him for it. 28%. That's our guy. That's the person we trust on healthcare. Nobody else is close. Look at Warren, 15%. But look, Joe Biden, number 2, 17%. Joe Biden is more trusted on healthcare than Warren. Why? Because Joe Biden is telling you, I just want to expand Obamacare. The best thing I'm going to give you is a public option. That's all I'm going to do. He's being honest about it. I find it to be grossly insufficient. However, he is being honest about what he's going to give you. All right, who's the best on environment? Bernie Sanders. Nobody's close. Nobody's close. Like, these are startling numbers. If you were looking, like, understand what I mean by this. Whatever the polling numbers are, put them to the side for the moment. You go down the list and you say, hey, who do you think is best on this issue? Who do you think is best on this issue? And as those issues line up, one name keeps coming up. And in some of those cases, dominantly, where he's beating by double digits. That is terrifying if you were looking at that and you were one of the other campaigns. Now, whether or not they would vote for him or not is somewhat different. But at the very least, they acknowledge he's the best on that issue. Who do you think is best on the economy? Bernie Sanders. Nobody's close. Nobody's close. Think about that. He's a fucking socialist. Like, this is momentous. You have a Reuters poll with a guy who brands himself a socialist and owns it. This is what I am. This is what I believe in. And runs with it. Hair on fire. And for 40 years, for 40 fucking years, the Democratic Party has said what he is doing is utterly and entirely impossible. And yet he's doing it. And the public is looking at him and saying, yeah, fair enough, I trust him on that. Why? Because he's telling you the truth. He's telling you what he's going to do. You think he's going to be radical? Well, yeah, he calls himself a socialist. This is what he's going to do. He's telling you, he's laying out the plan. He's not hiding the ball. He's being honest. They appreciate that. Yes, we think he's better on this issue. Now, again, thinking somebody is better on the issue is not necessarily the same thing as translating into a vote. But I am making the point that if a public is looking at their material interests and they're thinking that, yeah, this guy, he lines up with where I am, then there has to be something else to stop them from voting for that person. That something else lurks in this poll. Let's keep going. Who do you think is most likely to beat Trump? Joe Biden, and nobody is close. That's called electability or perceived electability. Nobody's close. When I show you all of those other issues, healthcare, environment, education. Did we get to education? Okay, who's a strong progressive? That again goes to Sanders. Who can unify the Democratic Party? That goes to Joe Biden. But on the main issues from the standpoint of policy, you go down, list item by item by item by item by item, and the name comes up Sanders. And then they ask, but who do you think can beat Trump? And they say, Biden. And if you remember, and you look back up at the top, what is the most important thing for you in choosing your candidate? They can beat Trump. They can get his ass out of office. So the fact that Biden can do that, or at the very least they believe Biden can do that, those two things dovetail. So the reason that you get Joe Biden still at number 2, who does number 2 work for, is electability. In their heads, this is the guy that beats Trump. And because this is the guy that beats Trump, we will give him that vote in order to do it. No, we're not energized. No, we're not fired up. No, we're not going to go to his rallies. No, we're not going to send him any money. But yes, we're terrified of Trump. So yeah, we're going to give him a vote. So a polling comes out with Sanders 17 to Biden's 15. But the closeness of that is entirely electability. When I make this argument, and I've made this argument for over a month now, that you must hit Joe Biden in his mask, meaning electability, this is what I am talking about. It is his armor. It is the thing that allows him to float in the way that he floats. It needs to be pierced in some way. Sanders could potentially win this primary, not piercing that. Meaning, the public sees him as a risky proposition to put up against the Democratic parties or to put against Trump. But think about what that means. John Kerry lost. Hillary Clinton lost. Al Gore lost. All of these were the same people. Obama, black man with a Muslim name, ran from pillar to post screaming hope and change. Nobody knew what that meant, but at the very least, it felt fucking euphoric. Not to mention, when the first black president was elected, Jesse Jackson, on the lawn, wept openly, unabashed as a man, just wept. It was a magnificent day in that sense, in the way that it felt. But the reality, or the material reality of it, was not hope and change. And it was pretty underwhelming. The point I'm trying to get at is, the person who won, though, ran counter to what the other Democrats were. The risky proposition here is to run somebody who is like John Kerry, who is like Hillary Clinton, and who is like Al Gore, since those three lost. And putting up Joe Biden is effectively putting up the exact same person. You've been accustomed to a particular type of Democrat. That's all this is. Considering one person risky versus the other person not has everything to do with what you've been accustomed to. It's almost just nurturing of sorts. Because you're used to it, you find that that's the norm. And that norm is soothing to you. I'm making a point to you that that's just relative distance or interaction. I mean, that goes away after you're with it for a period of time. The truth is that the risky prospect here is Biden. Just like the risky prospect was Clinton, as we kept saying it over and over and over again, and nobody wanted to listen. And they talked themselves in a bubble, saying that the woman was inevitable up until the point, literally, the microsecond that she lost. Gotta pierce that argument, or you gotta pierce that hide, you gotta press that argument. And it's good that Sanders has started to do that. But whether he's piercing it or not, at the very least, from the standpoint of Reuters, he's in the lead. Now, this is just one poll. And this is going to be averaged in to come up with some kind of thing, and Biden is still going to be in the lead. The catch here, though, is, again, national polling to some degree lies. When you get into the states, and you get state after state, especially if you have a situation with Sanders, wins Iowa, and then wins New Hampshire, and then has a strong showing in Nevada, if not winning Nevada. You know, the next state, South Carolina, Biden is most likely, Biden is going to win North Carolina. But showing that Sanders has in North Carolina may be in some degree dependent upon the momentum that he gets going from the other three states. Momentum is a real thing in politics. Other states, especially media and everything else, gives a certain glow and attention to campaigns that are winning. Now, I don't necessarily know if that's going to be true for Sanders. One of the super chats asked earlier, do I think that the media is going to hit Sanders if he's running against Trump? I think it's going to be this kind of passive aggressive stuff. No, they don't necessarily like him, but they're terrified and hate Trump. So they're stuck with this kind of, damned if we do, damned if we don't situation. After all of these people are millionaires being paid by billionaires to give a particular point of view to the public. They are disassociated from the public to which they give their narratives to, which, is part of the reason why the public distrusts media and greatly dislikes media. I'll end this here. I don't want this video to be long, but Reuters is a strong poll. I think it's a 3% variability. And like I said, it goes beyond the numbers. It goes into what people are thinking and why they're thinking it. And again, this gets into, I know I keep saying it, trends. The trends are the things that matters more. I'll end it here. Lowell Kimball. I just want to say that you have become one of my favorite progressive voice. You deserve all the success coming your way. Keep up the excellent work, my friend. Aw, thank you, Lowell. I appreciate it. I try. This has been a busy week, moving and everything else. And I got to be honest, I'm still on yesterday's steam. I haven't been to bed yet. This entire space is my man cave. That's what it is. I have a chessboard sitting there. I have the room set up the way I want the room set up. I made it into this kind of artsy loft with bright colors and everything else. And I built everything here. And it has taken 48 hours to do it, and I'm still up. So I appreciate the thank you. I appreciate it. It's not even a thank you. I appreciate the support. Let's say it that way. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll be back momentarily.